Welcome to another volume of the Cinema Chronicles right here on the Vick's Flicks podcast. I am your host, Brandon Vick. I am a member of the Southeastern Film Critics Association and a board member of the Music City Film Critics Association and the resident film critic here at So Bros Network. Thanksgiving is over. Black Friday is here. Christmas is upon us. And the Christmas tunes are playing on the radio. 'Tis the season, you sons of... I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. I did my usual. I sat in the back of my Dodge Nitro and gnawed on a turkey neck. It was pretty nice. It was a nice little alone time that I needed. So, but no, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. As I said, it's Black Friday. Black Friday's not what it used to be. I'm pretty sure it starts in October. But anyway, for all of you out there running amok, stabbing someone for a Furby, Godspeed today. Godspeed. I think that's the most popular toy this year, is a Furby, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe it's that Elmo that wears a chicken suit. I don't know. I'm not sure. But whatever it is, I hope you get it. I hope you get it and don't have to fight too many people in a Walmart line. So, good on you. Good on you. I want to, before I get into the movies that are the main features here on this edition, if you've been keeping up, me, the EIC, Stoney Keeley, and Stephen McCash all went for the first time and covered the Indie Memphis Film Festival. It was a great time. We did some podcasting. Stoney has a couple of articles up there just kind of about the whole kind of feel and vibe and our experience. We weren't there for a long time, but we were there for a good time. And I just wanted to first say that Memphis really is a hidden gem. We got to see another side of Memphis. I haven't been since Stoney and I went to see our very first NBA game in Memphis, and it was the Grizzlies against the Cavs when LeBron played for them the first time. So I don't know how many years ago it was, but we basically drove in, hung out, ate, saw the game, went to Huey's, woke up, went to Denny's, and went home. So we didn't really see much of nothing. We did see Bill Street, but we didn't really do much except for the game. So this time, as we were kind of taking time in between podcasting and watching films, we were able to kind of explore Memphis a little bit with the help of McCash, who lives there. If you listen to this whole podcast, I'll give you his address. So he showed us a ton of stuff, a lot of cool little spots. It's like around Memphis. We're already talking about going back maybe in the spring, and then obviously we certainly want to do the Indie Memphis Film Festival again. But shout out to Indie Memphis Film Festival. They were great. Everybody was very generous and nice. I love we only went to Studio on the Square Theater, but we did a podcast about this, but we went to one I think was called Ridgeway Theater to see A Real Pain, which is fantastic. Jesse Eisenberg wrote and directed. It has Kieran Culkin in it. It's phenomenal. But my God, that theater made everybody, well, I don't know about everybody, but Stoney and myself and at least two other older couples that were in there moist in their britches. It is a beautiful theater, and we might just go just to see a movie there and then just drive back. And if Nashville does that train where you can take it in an hour and a half, I guarantee we'll do it. So I say that to say this. Our last day, we didn't podcast. We kind of saw some films and then hit the road. So I kind of wanted to go over just a couple of ones that I saw. Me, McCash, Stoney saw Bonjour, Trestis. It's based on a novel, but it's actually a remake of a 1958 film where Cecil is spending the summer in the south of France with her widowed father Raymond and his latest flame Elsa. The equilibrium is disrupted when the arrival of Anne, an old friend of Cecil's mother, shows up. We all were big fans of it. I think all of us gave it like 4 out of 5 stars. It's stylish, it's seductive, it's sad, really good. Keep an eye on that one. It's one of the best of the fest for sure. We also watched, me and Stoney watched Dahomey, which is on a lot of these kind of year-end lists as far as best documentary features, and it's actually a little over an hour, I think maybe 70 minutes, and it's interesting to a point. I was a bit underwhelmed, but I think Stoney and I agree there's a portion of the doc where it kind of gets to the meat of the narrative, and it's kind of what these artifacts mean. There's thousands of royal artifacts of Dahomey, a West African kingdom. They were taken by the French colonists in the 19th century for collection and display in Paris. And now, centuries later, just a fraction of those are actually returned to their home. But it's a, and then this is all from Letterboxd. Says this dramatized documentary follows a journey of only 26 of the treasures as told by the cultural art historians, embattled university students, and one, and actually a statue that they, that is supposedly talking to you as well. It's not the best documentary I've seen. It is interesting, but if it wasn't for this kind of open forum where everybody's coming in trying to explain what these artifacts mean to different people and of different ages, I don't think it would be as interesting. But that one's Dahomey, so be on the lookout for that one if that sounds interesting to you. There's another one that's called Standing Above the Clouds. This is another documentary, and it's actually based on the award-winning short film, and it's about the 30-meter telescope that's being proposed to be built on the Mauna Kea, an uprising of the Kai protectors in Hawaii, and around the world they dedicate their lives to protecting this sacred mountain from destruction. And it goes on to say, through the lens of mothers and daughters and 3 native Hawaiian families, Standing Above the Clouds explores intergenerational healing and the impacts of safeguarding cultural traditions. I really like this one. It's about determination and perseverance, standing up for what you believe in. This is more than just a mountain to them. It is very much a mother to them. It's very significant within their culture. I was fascinated by it. I had not heard about this. It's a fight that continues today. It's called Standing Above the Clouds. It's really a terrific documentary. I can't recommend that one enough. And then I actually didn't get to see, the main highlight was Nickel Boys. It's been getting a lot of critical buzz. You could see it towards the end of the year for awards consideration for sure. But I did get to see it the next night at a press screening, and it's really well done. It's very ambitious. It's bold. Most of it is told from a first-person point of view. It's a blessing and a curse by using that, as it really kind of opens up as far as the visual storytelling. However, it does kind of keep you at an arm's distance on some scenes that should feel more intimate and emotional. But the performances are great. And again, the way that the story is told does make a difference and is quite stunning for the most part. So I wanted to give those films a shout out. We didn't get to do a formal podcast about those, and I just wanted to let everybody know that the Indie Memphis Film Festival is a delight. Next year, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they offer. So we'll definitely be back. And coming up next, we're going to get this thing started with with Captain America, Rocky Maivia, and that teacher from Whiplash who's an asshole. And they're going to do stuff. They're doing a Christmas movie about Santa. It's that time of year for the Christmas movies to start rolling out, which, come to think of it, I'm not even sure if there's going to be that many Christmas movies that are coming out in theaters. So Maybe this is the only one, but it's called Red One. And this is a Christmas action comedy with a holiday spirit that tries its damnedest to shine amongst the lame-brained Santa kidnapping story and the cheap CGI. The Rock, who's the main star, him and Chris Evans, but The Rock, I'm going to tell you, should have given the visual effects team some of his money he made off of Red One, because some of those scenes ain't looking pretty. Fun fact, as of 2023, Johnson earned $50 million for Red One, and it gave him the highest salary of his career, but also the biggest payday for an actor for like a single individual part. At the time, the previous record for the highest paid actor was Robert Downey Jr. for Captain America: Civil War, and funny enough, Will Smith for King Richard, who both got paid a total of $40 million up front. So $50 million for this up front is amazing. Now, in all fairness, he is a producer as well, but that's crazy. I'm just going to say it. This is on Rotten Tomatoes for Red One. After Santa Claus, codenamed Red One, is kidnapped, played by J.K. Simmons, the North Pole's head of security, Rock, must team up with the world's most infamous bounty hunter, Chris Evans, in a globe-trotting, action-packed mission to save Christmas. I will say Red One could have been an easy Christmas distraction that goes down a different path to get your holiday cheer jumping. It could be. That's for you all to decide. It's got, listen, a jacked up Santa, a bah humbug witch, killer snowmen, and a slap-fighting loving Krampus. Happy holidays. Happy flippin' holidays. Evans and Johnson, they're not bad together. I will say their chemistry is better than The Rock's and Ryan Reynolds in Red Notice, so there's that. It's not that entertaining, but rather tolerable, I should say, considering it could have been a Yuletide dumpster fire. It can be a bit imaginative at times. I especially liked it when we get to kind of see how Santa delivers the presents all around the world in one night. I thought they did a really good job with that, and it's one of the best things in it. And I was talking about, I've mentioned J.K. Simmons is Santa, and he's a buff, very healthy, impressive Santa. He's not bad, but he is no Kurt Russell. Okay, he's no Kurt Russell. Shout out to the Christmas Chronicles. And the heart of the movie rests on being on the naughty list and the choices that get us there. And all the while trying to see that kid that still exists deep down, no matter how old we get. That, to me, hits the sweet spot. But those moments don't last as long. With Red One has to get back. It's almost a must to its busy, bloated, and mostly unfunny and idiotic slave for more complete mayhem. At the end of the day, I think the good stuff surprises and the bad stuff is, let's be honest, sort of expected. It is from the director of Walk Hard. So what do we really expect here? Kids will no doubt have the most fun with it because it's not the usual kiddie Christmas stuff that they've become accustomed to. Red One by no means saves Christmas, though it doesn't necessarily need to be on the naughty list either. And I admittedly, it certainly shouldn't be on the naughty list on a level 4. So Vick's Flicks rating for the Red One, 2.5 out of 5. It's a fun enough Christmas movie, like I said, that's different from kind of the other stuff that honestly I think you all, myself included, we watch on a annual basis, but I also don't think it's going to be at the top of my Christmas movie watching list either. So, red one, 2.5 out of 5. And coming up next, the epic masterpiece gets a sequel. A sequel I never thought we would see. It's Gladiator II. For those of you that don't know, Gladiator is my favorite film of all time. As I've gotten older, I've said that I can't tell you it's the best made movie or the best written or the greatest performances. But hey, I feel like it all comes together and creates this experience that is just, it's of a bygone era. I recently watched it again before I went to see Gladiator II, and man, it definitely still holds up in every way imaginable. And when I first heard that Gladiator was getting a sequel, I was slightly stunned. This just did not seem like something that Ridley Scott would go back to. It was such a hit back in 2000. Definitely a big Oscar player, won Best Picture. Russell Crowe won for Best Actor. And so I'm like, man, almost 25 years later, and they're going to give this a shot. Which by the time the story started to kind of unfold, and we kind of saw Paul Mescal and Pedro Pascal, and then Denzel Washington's joining, Connie Britton's coming back, Ridley Scott's directing. My hopes were pretty high. I not at the standard of Gladiator, only just because I've put that film on a throne all by itself. But then I found out, and I sort of remember this, but it's been a little bit because this was back in 2018, and this was actually sent to me by our friend Sean Atkins, who over at 615 Film and is the president of the Music City Film Critics Association, sent me this piece. And like I said, I kind of remembered it, but I definitely did not remember a lot of it because it is quite shocking and insane. And also, by the way, if you see Sean out, he got a new Mazda hybrid car. I think it's from Jurassic Park. But if you see him, tell him congrats. He's really proud of it, and we're proud of him. But he sent this BBC article called Gladiator II, the strangest sequel never made. And again, this was written back in 2018. I'm not going to read word for word. I just want to give you a gist of what could have been. So, Ridley Scott's plan was to commission John Logan, one of the screenwriters of Gladiator, to write a sequel which would be set in ancient Rome, but which wouldn't feature either Crow or gladiators. So, not really a sequel at all. Understandably, Crow was keener on a film that he could actually be in, and so he hired another screenwriter, Nick Cave. Yes, the theatrical singer-songwriter. At the time, Cave had written just one produced screenplay, John Hillcoat's Ghosts of the Civil Dead, and he was concentrating on his music career, but he couldn't resist when Crow offered him the Gladiator II job, despite one obvious misgiving. "Didn't you die in Gladiator 1, he asked. "Yeah, you sort that out," replied Crow. And that's what he did. Cave's Gladiator II screenplay opens with Maximus waking up in the afterlife. To his disappointment, it isn't the sun-kissed Elysium he dreamt of in Gladiator, but an endless rain-sodden netherworld where wretched refugees huddled on the shores of a black ocean. With the help of a ghostly guide, Mordecai, Maximus treks to a ruined temple where he meets Jupiter, Mars, and 5 other diseased and decrepit Roman deities. Jupiter explains that one of their number, Hephaestus, has betrayed them and is now preaching the gospel of another God who is more powerful than all of them. So it goes on where Jupiter offers him a deal that if he kills Hephaestus, then he will be reunited with his wife and son. And that, and so he said, although Gladiator, Maximus longs to see his family again. So there's certain logic to a plot which keeps that longing alive, him wanting to be reunited with his family, even when the person doing the longing isn't. The BBC article says, once you adjust your expectations, you can settle in and enjoy Gladiator 2 for the supernatural quest, that movie that it is. And then it says to hell and back. But then suddenly it isn't. No sooner has Maximus tracked down Hephaestus than he is zapped out of the Stygian gloom and into the world of flesh and blood a decade or two after his death. Human again, he travels to Rome in search of his son Marius. Did I mention that Marius, who was crucified and burnt to death in Gladiator, is alive and kicking in Gladiator II? At this stage, the script focused on a band of early Christians dodging the Roman authorities, just as they did during the, he talks about a Mary Magdalene biopic, which Phoenix was in. But these scenes also bring back some of the characters and political intrigue from Gladiator. As well as meeting his now adult son, Maximus bumps into his old sidekick, Juba, who was played by Digimon Hansu in the original film. And the screenplay's villain is none other than Commodus's mild-mannered nephew, Lucius, now grown up to be as evil as his uncle. More importantly, Gladiator II revisits the Colosseum, where the Emperor watches a mock naval battle in an amphitheater which is flooded with water and stocked with 100 alligators. Everything leads to a showdown between Lucius's Roman enforcers and the Christian resistance army, which Maximus and Juba have been training in secret. And then what? Another chat with the Roman gods? A family reunion in sunny Elysium? Well, no. Instead, Cave has Maximus striding into battle through the centuries in the Crusades, in the World Wars, in Vietnam, and finally in the Pentagon. Folks, that could have been Gladiator II. And after all of this, Crow's reaction, according to Cave, was simple. Don't like it, mate. So, let's get to the real Gladiator II. Per Rotten Tomatoes, years after witnessing the death of Maximus at the hands of his uncle, Lucius must enter the Colosseum after the powerful emperors of Rome conquer his home. With rage in his heart and the future of the empire at stake, he looks to the past to find the strength and honor needed to return the glory of Rome to its people. Gladiator II is a primarily satisfying, though far less superior sequel to what I consider the greatest film of all time. And I think that's all you could really ask for. Ridley Scott returns to the Colosseum for more barbarians, brutality, and bloodshed. He certainly hasn't lost a step in presenting spectacle, as this is epic in scope and scale. But the same can't be said for its storytelling. There are too many parts that feel like a rehash of its predecessor, with some significant scenes never feeling emotionally earned. As I mentioned before, Pedro Pascal and Paul Mescal, they're in it. They're good. I don't think anybody would question that. I think they're talented guys. But I think Pascal needed more. The character needed more to do. And Mescal, he definitely looks the part. This is per Vanity Fair, a piece called "To Take on Gladiator II, Paul Mescal had to quiet the demons in my head." And when in that, they ask him, can you talk a little bit about how your physical transformation informed the character? And he says, building the frame, both physically and psychologically, that informs how you walk, how you move, emotional temperature, whatever's going on physiologically. I'm glad I can read. You kind of just feel like you're preparing for violent acts, essentially, even though you know you're not. You're spending the months leading up to it like the only way you can survive this film is by being able to be victorious in the arena. It reminded me of playing sport. You're building up to a big game, and you have to have aggression available to you, or anger, and those are things that we typically try to avoid. But for me, Mescal, through it all, he has a difficult time maintaining the commanding presence that is required to be Lucius. I mean, in all fairness, he is standing within a huge shadow that is casted by Crow's Maximus. Though, who excites, engrosses, and entertains like no one else in Gladiator II is the one and the only Denzel Washington. He's on an elite level all by himself with a delicious, devious supporting performance. From the opening scene that you meet him to the final scene you see him, it is quite a journey with him. And truly Gladiator 2 would not be the film that it is without him. And he really is the most interesting, fascinating, exciting part of Gladiator 2. There's also the exceptional cinematography by John Matheson, who's also worked with Scott previously on Robin Hood, Kingdom of Heaven, Matchstick Men, Hannibal, and, of course, Gladiator. Also, along with the exceptional cinematography is the superb set and costume design. All of this still dazzle and astonish. There's even more intense battle scenes here, yet they tend to not mean as much. And it's funny because in my rundown of this kind of Gladiator sequel that Nick Cave was going to do, they were talking about like the water in the Colosseum, and they actually do that in this one. It's almost like they're playing Battleship with sharks. It's not alligators, but there's sharks within the Colosseum once they let the water in. And there's also, I think it might be the first actual, like it's before Lucius gets to the arena, but he's fighting wild monkeys. So some of that to me is a little crazy. I get it. It's kind of for show. It's kind of, I mean, what do you do? How do you build on these battle scenes, and especially within the Colosseum or the arena, without adding some kind of gimmick to it? Or I think in wrestling they would call it a stipulation. But they just don't seem that important to me. But I think what Gladiator 2 does is that it bows down to the original, and it certainly has some nice nostalgia moments that ultimately win us over. Scott gives us what we came to see. Its echo in eternity won't be as potent or profound as the first one, in my humble opinion, but there's enough here to claim victory. I am giving Gladiator 2 a Vick's Flicks rating of 3.5 out of 5 stars. And coming up next, it's the sensation sweeping the nation. Broadway musical becomes a feature film. This one's the next in line, and it's about Oz and some witches and defying gravity. I'm talking about Wicked, y'all. Made over $100 something million on its opening weekend, and I bet you it ends up being number one again, even though it is competing against Moana 2. But I haven't really heard that much about it, and as of this recording, I haven't seen it. So I'll just go with that. But Wicked, which if anybody has not seen the Broadway show, it is phenomenal. It ranks up there for me. Hadestown, The Lion King, Wicked, those are some of the best shows I have ever seen. So it's definitely worth catching live. But the movie stars Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. And per Rotten Tomatoes, Wicked is the untold story of the Witches of Oz. It stars Emmy, Grammy, and Tony-winning powerhouse Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, a young woman misunderstood because of her unusual green skin who has yet to discover her true power, and Grammy-winning multi-platinum recording artist and global superstar Ariana Grande as Glinda, a popular young woman gilded by privilege and ambition who has yet to discover her true heart. The two meet as students at Shiz University in the fantastical land of Oz and forge an unlikely but profound friendship. Following an encounter with the wonderful Wizard of Oz, their friendship reaches a crossroads and their lives take very different paths. Glinda's unflinching desire for popularity sees her seduced by power, while Elphaba, it's probably Elphaba, because I'm pretty sure when I watched this, I didn't hear anyone say Elphaba. Elphaba. Elphaba's determination to remain true to herself and to those around her will have unexpected and shocking consequences on her future. Their extraordinary adventures in Oz will ultimately see them fulfill their destinies as Glinda the Good and the Wicked Witch of the West. So, this is a musical film adaptation that won't disappoint fans of the Broadway show. It will delight new fans, and it will dazzle everyone in between. Arrivo and Grande are fabulous in their respective roles and are a huge reason this takes flight as wonderfully as it does. Their chemistry and, of course, their vocals will knock your ruby red slippers off. The visuals, the production designs, the costumes, the makeup, they're all exquisitely detailed, lavish, vibrant, and gorgeous. They are without a doubt eye-popping and jaw-dropping. At the same time, tonally speaking, it has its issues, and it is too long. I'm sure you probably have heard this, but this Wicked is actually a part one of a two-part film, and this part is 2 hours and 40 minutes. And if you go and look up how long the Broadway musical show is, it is 2 hours and 40 minutes, 2 hours and 45 minutes with an intermission. That's the entire show. So yes, it is. It's a bit too long. Some parts fail to reach the emotional heights that director John M. Chu from Crazy Rich Asians and crew are going for. The musical numbers are great, and they are directed with great confidence and style. Obviously, Defying Gravity is the highlight. And that song actually plays a pivotal role in how this first part would be presented. And also, I want to say, I talked about Crazy Rich Asians, which that was John M. Chu's really kind of big thing. But I want to make sure that mention that he also, and honestly, it's very underrated, but Lin-Manuel Miranda picked him to direct In the Heights, and that was one of the best films I saw that year. I think that was in 2021. So I really enjoyed those. I mean, he also did a lot of Justin Bieber stuff and did G.I. Joe Retaliation. But Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights are some great stuff. But so back to Defying Gravity, and it played a pivotal role. This is via IndieWire. John M. Chu's key to cracking Wicked was starting at the end. So Chu had to start at the end when he was conceptualizing Wicked, or rather the middle. Once the decision was made that the massive musical would be split into two parts, director Chu needed to work backward from the epic Defying Gravity number, which does close out Act 1 in the Broadway show and serves as the finale in the first film. He says, you have the greatest gift in the world, an ending number of Defying Gravity. However, it can't just feel like the closing number, Chu told IndieWire. It has to feel like the scene we're rooting for the entire movie, which means we have to look backwards. Okay, if this is Elphaba and her takeoff is what we're going to be rooting for, then who is Elphaba? And how fast can she become the center of our story? What does flying mean to her? Is it the broomstick that's pulling her? And if not, then what is it? Oh, her relationship with nature, because that's why she cares about the animals. Chu then enumerated on school and broomsticks and connections. It really dictated what we need to plant in the story in order to make Defying Gravity the thing that we hope for her, he said. So when she grabs the broomstick and says, it's me, it's not just a lyric. It is, I'm the one who's the hero of the story. It's me in all those ways. It's me, the villain, whatever you want to do it. When she finally sings Defying Gravity, it feels like what we've been waiting for. And it is what we've been waiting for, but we could have gotten there a bit sooner. I don't think it's the musical masterpiece that others have called it, but I will admit, for Wicked, there is much to marvel at. And most importantly, its heart from the stage is still beating on screen, thanks to Chu's superb skills behind the camera and the divine performances that are in front of it. It does make for a transportive theater experience into this timeless world of Oz. It's also quite timely, and Chu unsurprisingly recognizes that. Where this, again, IndieWire, John M. Chu embraced the politics of Wicked, and audiences seeing it through a post-election lens. What Wicked has to say about gaslighting leaders, fascism, scapegoating entire races of people, and American resilience is something Chu thought a great deal about. So he's not surprised its timelessness speaks to this moment. Chu embraces that his movie will take on a new layer of meaning for many audience members after the re-election of Trump, but noted that impact is in part because politics has been baked into Wicked since its inception. Gregory Maguire's 1995 book Wicked is a meditation on resisting fascist movements, a not-so-subtle theme that carried into its musical adaptation by Stephen Schwartz and Winnie Holzman. A major underlying storyline of Wicked is how leaders, who claim to have the people's best interests at heart, attack the educated, represented by Professor Dr. Dillamon, a talking goat that's voiced by Peter Dinklage in the Wicked film, as they try to rewrite the history of animals and humans' coexistence in an effort to strip the animals of their rights and demonize them as a source of the people's problems. Through this lens, Chu acknowledged his film is prophetic, but only because the underlying IP is prophetic. Chu argued the original Wizard of Oz movie, released on the heels of the 1930s Dust Bowl, the drought-stricken storms of the Depression, during the rise of fascism and on the eve of World War II, has always spoken to America in a time of transition. I'm giving Wicked a VixFlix rating of 3.5 out of 5. I really do think it is a great adaptation. It has a lot of life to it, and I know a lot of people already know the songs, and if they don't, then they will, and I know people are listening to the soundtrack nonstop right now. I'm happy for the film. I'm happy for Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande and the rest of the cast. You have Michelle Yeoh, Jeff Goldblum. There's a lot of people in this that make it work as well as it does. I just don't think it's quite the triumph that a lot of people have, but I definitely think it is a solid effort, and I am very much I was very much satisfied with it and looking forward to what Part 2 brings next year. So that will do it for another volume of these Cinema Chronicles on the Sobros Network. Again, I'm your host, Brandon Vick. You can follow me at Sir Brandon V on Twitter, Sir Brandon on Letterboxd. Check out all of our work at SobrosNetwork.com. We have a Hugh Grant podcast up that also I share my review of Heretic, which is one of the best movies of the year. Hugh Grant is outstanding. And again, there's some podcasts that we kind of cover on our work on the Indie Memphis Film Festival. Stoney has a couple of pieces about that as well. So give those a listen, give them a read, and be sure to subscribe to the VixFlix podcast on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify, wherever you take in your shows. Give us a rating and review whenever you have a moment. That's how we get better. We always want to be better for you guys. I will talk to you folks again right here on the Cinema Chronicles at the end of 2024. And until then, just go see a damn movie.